That's the where and why, the platforms that you want your content to be on. So then you need to plan your segments and pick out your segments based on what's appropriate for those platforms or for, generalized syndication. So actually, as a bit of a, I guess, philosophical discussion for a moment, I've brought this up a couple times recently, but I want to just add it in here because it's relevant. I believe personally, and this is purely a personalized stance, but I personally believe in syndicating your content as many places as you can within reason where it makes sense. So in an ideal world, you're adapting that for all the different platforms. So like Facebook, you're adapting for it with subtitles and vertical video and short form. You're putting it on YouTube. You're duplicating your YouTube copy to like Vimeo or Dailymotion. I don't know if Dailymotion's still around. And your Twitch videos, you're uploading to there as well. And Library, which syndicates to Odyssey, like all of those places, so that you always have your content in places that viewers might find you or might want to watch you, but also you have backups and things like that. At the same time, ultimately, as every day passes, the only platforms that truly matter are the big mainstream ones with mass audiences. That's just how the world works. But a lot of people get hung up on the idea that they can't monetize on these platforms. But if you're only getting 20 views or less on those platforms, you're not missing out on any ad revenue, and it's not hurting you to have it on there. But I believe in syndicating as much as possible, but the most effective way to syndicate, which, we're all human beings, and unless you have a massive media team behind you, you can't do on scale like someone like Gary Vaynerchuk can, when that 64 pieces of content PDF I showed. We're still human beings, and you can't do this. So then you need to prioritize, that's the whole prioritize point, the platforms that you want to be able to dedicate time or find a more efficient workflow to specifically cut and cater that content towards those platforms. Because you're going to get, if you're just posting the same YouTube video formatted for YouTube with the same YouTube call to actions and all of that on every single platform, it's going to perform worse or not be as effective towards building your brand, because the people on those extra platforms aren't necessarily caring about your video because it's not built for them. So for example, if you post a YouTube video like super squished down or cropped or something on your phone, in the vertical box, like super squished, to then post to TikTok, no one's going to watch it because it's not formatted or adapted properly for TikTok. Meanwhile, if you get a little excerpt of it that's a nice take or a highlight moment or something, or a cool thing that happens, and you format it properly for TikTok and you add the captions and all that, it could perform well on its own on that platform, leveraging the native tools and discoverability on those platforms. And that is incredibly important. But you need to prioritize which platforms you think are the most important for you, because you just don't have the capacity to hit them all. And it's not worth it to do, like, even if you have the capacity, if that's like you spend every waking hour working on syncing up your content in between streams, that's not worth it. So we have the where and why done, and so now we're planning our segments. So for me, a big segment that I want to bring back, because it can be its own YouTube video, because it was before, is one called Stream Critique. And I can actually pull this up on my channel. If I come to playlists, I should have already had this queued up. Actually, I have it on the Stream Critique page. I only did 7 episodes of this before I ended up not being able to keep it going because I was trying to overdo it, and this came up right as I was having a kid, so time got really short and all of my shooting space got wrecked, but whatever. But I had a show called Stream Critique, which was one of the original stream evaluations, let's review your stream shows, before a bunch of other people started doing them. This was the main one, and I think in the absence of mine kind of disappearing a few months later, a couple of the other streaming channels started doing them. But even though I'm sure one existed beforehand, I like to call mine the original. So I have the show that I was doing that I want to bring back. You all freaking loved it. I got to bring out some really specific advice about streaming and about, sorry, my allergies are really bad, about specific streams that I think you all, was really valuable, and the feedback on it was incredible, and I got to shout some of you all out and get promotion for streamers that are doing cool stuff. I really enjoyed this, and I made some cool friends through it as well. I don't know, I've been planning it. I have reopened submissions to it, as is the case with the Stream Critique application here that I linked in the description. I want to bring it back. So in order to do so, I think it should be a part of this Twitch show. I do the stream reviews in real time with you all here on Twitch. That's kind of what I wanted to do in the first place, and I was actually reformatting it for a little bit. I was going to do it as part of a Twitch show called the Stream Professor's Report Card. I don't know which title I'm going to stick with. Probably still Stream Critique, because it's already a playlist and a show idea I have going. But the Stream Professor's Report Card or Streamer Report Card or whatever could be an aspect of that show, like the final wrap up at the end of that segment of the show or whatever. But I know for absolute certain I want stream critique. So we have stream critique. I want to do a highlight of cool stuff that I've found. I haven't personally narrowed it down to what specifically, but think about it like an app showcase. Oh, wait. I have this. All right. So show segments. I'm not dividing this up right. So we have stream critique, an app / let's say tool showcase. Useful stuff that I don't necessarily know if I'm going to make a dedicated video on, but we're going to put that there. If I really wanted to get maximum ROI, or I specifically just didn't have time to prep it for an episode, or I needed an extended break, I could actually just run a playthrough of the upcoming, or theoretically the previous played back, but that might cost some of my viewers. But my upcoming or previous episode of a video about like 5 OBS plugins or 5 OBS filters or scripts or whatever. I could run that there if I needed to. It would be really cool to run the next episode and then you all get a sneak peek at it. But theoretically, I could leverage an older one as well. So that's a segment I want to have. Now, keep in mind, with all of this, I guess I should have said you should kind of pick out your time length, or at least be brainstorming it at this point. You don't have to solidify it just yet. But for me, it helps to plan out blocks of time, because with my schedule, with my kid and stuff, I can only block out an hour, maybe 2 if I'm lucky. I'm still working that out. But, you know, I have a general idea of the time frame that I can work in order to make this happen. And so that will affect the number of segments you have, as well as the length of them and the depth of them. So if you end up with a bunch of segments that you're really committed to, I would recommend doing pilot different formats shows and see what sticks the best, or just do different ones. So if you stream on Tuesday and Thursday, Tuesday is a different show from Thursday, and maybe there's a shared segment across both, but otherwise the segments kind of differ a little bit. And yeah, also consider your setup and prep work for your segments as well, as Cujo pointed out. Thankfully, I get to not include that in my length of time, so I usually have a 20 to 30 minute window on either side of my streams, which is why sometimes for AFK chat, I show up and everything's broken and we start weirdly, but you know, I usually have that buffer, but you may not, and so you also have to consider that as well, which is why as much planning here as possible is super important, because you can be most efficient if you already, like, if you're working on your notes or getting stuff in the right place throughout the show, or throughout the week rather, leading up to your show, then you may be in a position where you can just flip everything on and go. But if you need to get a whole lot ready before you do, then you're going to run into some issues. Also, get subscribed on YouTube, because I will have a video coming on how to completely automate your own dedicated streaming rig to set up everything on its own, so you really just turn it on and it's ready to rock, which should be pretty exciting. I'm still in the planning stages for that, so sometimes I point out these videos. Granted, sometimes it takes 2 years to get to these videos I point out. I don't think this is the case for this one, but sometimes I point these out and people are like 2 days later, like, where's that video? So I know I want to feature cool stuff that I found that I don't necessarily get to make a video on. And that is part of the cool thing to do with your show, is if you're already making dedicated video content, then some of this can be stuff that you don't have the time or energy to make dedicated videos on, or would work while live because it's lower production value, but wouldn't work during a show. That's a big thing I'm trying to leverage here as well. So featured stuff there. And then I'm going to create a couple vague categories based on what we have here. So I'm going to have what I call the tweak zone, which sounds incredibly cringy, and I'll change it later. But this will be, I'm going to hide that line break or page break. This will be a kind of amalgamation of general testing and tweaking and unboxings. So this will be me messing with the stuff that I have. So unboxings and first impressions and general testing, tweaking. Because this is the completely unscripted, mostly unplanned, I just want to play with this and have you all along for the ride show, or segment rather. That could take up most of the show one week and a tiny bit of the show the next week. Like today's stream, I have a singular product to unbox. Probably won't take very much time because it's not something I can test while live. But other weeks I may be like, let's just play with this cool thing as the main part of the show. And then we have what I'm going to call just general Q&A time. Now, I think you should always allocate time for this in your show. Unless you're a huge streamer with like a massive following and you just get to say, screw chat, I have money. You should always allocate time for the interactivity, be it in between segments or a dedicated segment. So the way I run my streams is that in between segments or in between even topics within a segment, I will still respond to you all as I am right now, taking the time to respond to chat in between thoughts or paragraphs or whatever. But also I have dedicated time if things work out or don't run too long. I reserve a little bit of time at the end just for dedicated Q&A. Because sometimes, again, I love you all, but sometimes you all show up to a stream where I'm clearly talking about a specific topic, and you all are like, I have this very specific technical problem I want your help with, and if I think I can answer it during the stream, then I'll do so, and do that within the dedicated end time. And half the time those people are gone because they're mad I didn't help with their personal tech support question in the middle of a topic stream. Realistically, it's fine. Yo, Epos, what NVMe should I buy? Yeah, exactly. A fine question to ask. You could ask it and get more answers from our lovely community on our Discord server at discord.gg/EposVox, but not something I'm going to answer in the middle of a specific topic that I'm talking about. Beginning and end, you should probably allocate time for this Q&A/just chatting. You also don't want to start your show like as soon as you hit go live and everyone's talking about getting rid of starting soon screens and stuff, because who wants to sit there and watch a stream that hasn't started yet? So you generally want to allocate the first X amount of time at the start of your stream when you're still waiting for everyone to show up, and then at the end of your stream as you're done wrapping up, or that. For me, this may mostly be at the start because of something we're going to talk about in a moment. So we're going to plan segments, and then we're going to plan buffer time for setup/prep, plan Q&A/just chatting buffer as well. Speaking of YouTube notifications, as I just mentioned, you only get so many per day to upload these videos, which is why I have to space these parts out. If you're looking for the full picture plus tons more information that I dropped during this whole talk that didn't make it into the full cuts of these videos, the entire extended cut of this whole talk is actually already available on my own streaming site. My videos are higher quality there, ad-free, and often extended from the YouTube version, like this one. The site is called Nebula, and we've partnered with CuriosityStream. Nebula features YouTube's top education creators such as MKBHD, Lowspec Gamer, and Thomas Frank. CuriosityStream saw what we were doing for educational content and wanted to partner up. We've worked out a deal where if you sign up with the link below, you not only get access to CuriosityStream and their library of thousands of documentary and educational content, but you get access to Nebula for free for the entire duration of your subscription to CuriosityStream. For a limited time, CuriosityStream is offering a 26% off deal off of their annual plan, making it less than $15 per year for both CuriosityStream and Nebula. While you're there, check out Becoming Martian to learn about how we need to evolve, how we live, also how we exist in order to live on Mars in the future, which seems to be something that people want to do now. Head on over to curiositystream.com/epos for the best deal in streaming. Sign up today. So then there is a final segment that I want to include in my stream. And that is these things right here. The things that I said don't make sense to be the main point of my show. Gameplay and Pokemon card openings. Now these aren't entirely relevant to the main point of the show, but there's still something some people want to watch me do, and some things that I enjoy doing. And in order to be able to do that thing, you have to work it into your format. So for this, I feel like it would make sense to end the show with the after party. Now, there are some more granular decisions that go into planning this that may make you not want to do this, such as if you're chasing partnership and you're chasing that average viewer retention number that you have to maintain to keep really high to get partnership, a lot of people are going to drop off during the after party. So if you're worried about having that chunk of time where you have less average viewers and that reflecting poorly on you or holding you back from something, you kind of want to keep all of your content that you have, while you're live being as hard-hitting as possible and do this elsewhere. Alternatively, we also do gameplay. So we'll put here gameplay and Pokemon card openings. So that's my after party. Alternatively, we also do this for Discord community game night, but that is another outlet where if I ended up never streaming gameplay, I still get to do that and do it in a stream-like format with my audience. It's just not the main part of the show. And this is the big thing that I was talking about during my previous Twitch stream. I think it was 2 nights ago now, where we were talking about choosing your career path and pointing out the things adjacent to what you do. So you may find that, and I also want to clarify here that I'm specifically pointing out gameplay so much because I'm making a huge effort on my part to make things as generally applicable as possible, because I firmly believe that my content is helpful and useful for people who are not game streamers as well, and so much is catered towards game streaming that I'm trying to branch out a little bit, but I want to make sure I always tie it back to gaming too, because if I don't mention it, it may sound like it doesn't apply to it at all. During our conversation about finding your career path, we talked about finding, like, writing in a bubble the vague idea of what you want to do for a living, which may be video games, and then identifying actual jobs that you kind of dot around it that are adjacent to or relevant to that niche. So instead of just playing games for a living, which isn't a job, you can have game development, writing in games, game reviewing, games journalism, game support, QA testing, those kinds of event hosting, esports casting. There's all sorts of jobs around gaming. And so you may find specifically that instead of doing a plain Jane gameplay stream, that either you can't keep up with the strenuous, like, playing your competitive game while chatting with chat, or you're not getting as much enjoyment out of it, or what have you. You may find that you can do a show that is either casting events or giving a gaming news show. Those do really well if you do it right and have the right comedy or sketches, or, you know, something that is about gaming, or reviews even. First impressions, those kinds of things. Things that are about gaming and involve video games, but aren't just standard gameplay let's play streams, because everyone's doing them. It's hard to innovate. It's hard to really get a grip with those. You may find that your actual most successful show idea is doing something adjacent to that, and then you wrap it up with playing the game yourself and having a little bit of fun there, playing with viewers, chatting with viewers while you play and whatever, so that you can still do both of them at the same time and still get that out there. Because I think that's a big thing that people sacrifice a lot, is they sacrifice the success of their stream, their own personal happiness, actually finding a career in what they're doing, by chasing the generalized idea instead. And so, as Cujo alluded to, trying to spoil the heck out of this stream like half an hour ago, you can do gameplay in different ways. So, like, specifically with my show, and this is actually how I handle it behind the scenes, is a ton of my gameplay time for just me playing video games is not just me sitting down and playing games, although I'm still working on that a little bit myself. No, Cujo, you were a huge help. Yeah, I'm just jumping on you because it was funny. A lot of my times isn't me just sitting down and being like, all right, I'm going to play a game and just playing it for me. It is testing the hardware that I'm reviewing. So all of my capture card reviews, all of my streaming tutorials, things like that, those usually take a few extra hours than they should, because I'm putting in that time to actually play games for myself, which is also why when I'm doing capture card tests and stuff, the games change all the time, because I am picking out games I want to play and testing the capture cards with those. Gameplay should be a filler piece of content, not the core content that you're streaming, generally speaking. There's all kinds of exceptions, and there are people who can make it, but not everyone can, especially as saturated as it has become. Especially if you're talking about, as Jay Brucifer is pointing out here, especially when you're talking about showcasing your personality. Because being real, being serious right now, if I get my keyboard and my mouse and my microphone up, me responding to a game and playing like this and ignoring chat until in between matches, you don't get to learn a lot about me. You can through the visual branding, the music, the vibe that I establish, but you don't get the interactivity and the brand building and the personality development that you do of the rest of the show. And that is what converts someone who stops by your stream into a long-term follower and returning viewer, are those elements. Gameplay is often secondary, especially if you're not at that top tier, like, hyper competitive, you are Shroud level gameplay here. That is often the case. So we have completed the step. We have planned out our segments and, of course, our buffer time and all of that. We've planned our segments. We're good to go, right? Well, I mean, yes, but if we want to get into the technical details, now we have to talk about the literal building of our stream.